Hello, hello,
Yep.
hello. So everything is working.
It is.
So, good morning, I would
One, two,
say. And we start with our panel, Beyond the Beat, Unlocking African Soundscape for a Global Film Productions, or for global film productions. And I think we have a very interesting board today, or panel, that Prudence was able to put together. On my left side is Olunuga, very talented composer. He's got actually a film this afternoon premiering here on the Berlinale, having worked in Disney projects, so also somebody in African film scoping who's really doing high-end productions. He will tell us about it, very interesting. And to my right, Christoph Becker, also who's going to be the co-host from today, because I think both of us are going to have a lot of questions to the people that we'll be able to talk to. And then I hope that we'll be seeing Kulanen Ikyo. Here he is. Welcome very much. We're happy to have you.
How's it going?
Very well, good. I'm good. How are you all guys?
We're good and we're happy to have you. And then also, I hope I pronounced it right, Editi Effiong. And I hope he'll be there too. He'll be there soon. So I would say let's just jump right into it. And maybe I start with Ray and ask him, because right after this event, he's going to go and have his premiere. And maybe tell us, what film did you bring to the Berlinale? And maybe what relevance has the score and the soundtrack of the film? Maybe tell us a little bit. What is it about? And speak about it.
Well, the film is Dreamers. And it's about two women in a detention center who fall in love in very, very tough circumstances. They are facing, I don't want to spoil the film, but...
Maybe talk about the music. Like maybe we got
facing,
already an idea. How did you approach the score?
Well, the music, with every score, I'm trying to just reflect the emotional energy in the story. So the music absolutely reflects the story. It's romantic. It's acknowledging the environment that they're in. It's acknowledging their fear. It's acknowledging the journey that they're going through. Stylistically, I always try to make sure that I'm doing something new with each score, just so I can get out of bed and feel excited. And with this, because I was working with a friend, the director, Joy, is a longtime friend, who we started our careers out together, actually. We had been talking about this film for so long, and she just let me play. She let me do some wild things in the studio, and thankfully audiences seem to like it.
Maybe to get Kulanen into the discussion. Maybe I start with a quote of you. You said, everybody wants a Fela song in his film. And my question would be, how relevant is the Nigerian music tradition, the big beat tradition that also is reflected in the name or the title of the panel today? How relevant is it to you?
How relevant is? Please, can you say the question again? How relevant is?
Like the Afro beat, like we say, beyond the beat,
Okay,
and
yes.
you said like everybody wants a Fela song today.
Exactly. Because it's fresh, you know. Everybody wants to have a feel of what is happening in Africa. I mean, it's our voices. We've always just done our thing, and we've always had our music, you know. And right now, people are just connecting to it and trying to feel what's happening in Africa and what we're doing. So yeah, it's I hope that answers it.
Maybe I was wondering, Kulan, if through the hype around Afrobeat and all the artists especially from Nigeria, breaking through and becoming big phenomena also in the streaming world and everywhere, does it help you with developing your, like, I don't know, your film music world? Is it somehow supportive? This development also, I mean, what happened with the Marvel production going on there, and like, I don't know, Beyonce connecting with Nigerian artists and the Nigerian production world. Does it help the film music world as well, or is it just something in a certain pop world going on?
No, yes, it does help the film music world. Um, the thing about film music, and any composer will tell you, is that people like to hear what they like to hear, you know. And the thing about expression is that it's very universal. So, what makes our music unique, and what is happening is that the extra nuances that we add to the universal expression is what people are getting to understand and feel. So Beyonce and all of the artists who are going out there and making people familiarize themselves with the kind of music we're doing here just helps us to, it helps us to be able to add that extra nuance to scores, you know, because generally expressions are universal, you know, and so a sad score will be a sad score. But then there's the extra nuance of Nigeria, of Africa, of our ethnicity, you know. And so what the Afro does to us is that people are beginning to appreciate those nuances, you know, our use of polyrhythms, percussion, a lot of percussion, and even the tonal instruments are percussive, you know, repetitive, that kind of thing, call answer and that kind of thing. So adding that nuance to film music, yes, that's what Afrobeat, you know, in the pop world is helping us to be able to add even in film scores. Yeah.
Maybe you want to add, Ray?
Yeah, I love everything that you said. I love everything that he said. The imagery that I try to use is, it's like cooking. You know, I think people are now familiar with new ingredients. There's a whole continent that's opened up that, oh, there are these spicy things that we can get from this place, or these other types of textures that we can reach for in telling our stories. Like Kulanen said, it's emotional expression. Everybody instinctively understands what love feels like, or what fear feels like, or tenderness. And if you can create a meal in an unexpected way for an audience, it has a little bit more impact. So yeah, the attention on Nigerian culture and West African culture has helped, I think, globally, our cinematic conversations about how we make films and what types of art we use in telling these stories.
Like one very important ingredient in score music in the US and Europe is symphonic music. That's what we said, like beyond the beat. I know also Kulanen is very much also about melody and so how do you approach, let's say, the symphonic sound that both of you use? How is this ingredient treated? How is it recorded? How is it developed? And how is it maybe also mixed with the other ingredients that you cook?
Wow, Kulanen, do you want to go first?
Yeah, I can go first. I mean, hi, Editi.
How's it going?
So,
Right.
I always try to be as authentic as possible. And I will give two examples, one with Lionheart to Netflix and one with Black Book. One of the things I do when I want to add our elements into the score is, first of all, I like to record the musicians or the artists in their very element. I don't use a click track. I don't use anything, so that they play and express themselves exactly how they want to be heard, because I'm so big on authenticity. And so I start to pick, like I said earlier on, expression is universal. So there's certain things that for example, a downbeat is universal. Any rhythm you hear from any culture, anywhere, you hear a downbeat. So I start to pick things that I know from the samples I record can that someone anywhere can feel it, and then I start to insert those elements in uh, in my symphonic score. I mean, symphonic scores have been there forever, but people are just beginning to discover our kind of thing. For example, I use, instead of a kick drum, I use a Igbo Udu, for the downbeat. A lot. I do it a lot in Lionheart. In Black Book, I use there's a Hausa flute. I use it somewhere because we go to the north a lot. I use it on top of the symphonic score, but then I make sure I want to record the artists in their very natural elements so that they are as authentic as possible. And then I try to find those things that are universal, that everybody will appreciate. And then I start to pick them out and then put them on my symphonic score, and then try to blend them. So that's basically my approach on a very simple level. Yeah.
Maybe we can. Next question would go to Editi and get him into the conversation. He's a director and producer of, I think, the most successful Nigerian, even African film within the last year. Black Book, very successful, running in African territories, but also South Korea and many territories. So congratulations, both. And maybe question is, how important is the music? How important is the score? I read that Kulanen is even taking details such as the sound of the different guns into consideration. So why did the film work so well, and what is his participation? What could he bring to the table?
I think the non-musician version of the story, because I have worked with Ray during my first film, Up North.
I was going to say how
Kulanen.
far.
Yeah, how no. That's a long time, 2018, man.
I know, man. It's been so long.
Yeah, we've come a long way. So I'm obviously not a musician. Ray and Kulanen are musicians. And so Kulanen, especially, first time we met, worked together, I think he thought I was an ass. Because I'm obviously not a musician. I don't know anything they're talking about. Downbeats, upbeats, all that. I do not know. But what I do know is that film, motion picture, is supposed to make people feel. It's supposed to evoke emotion. And so music is a big part of that, and how things sound you want to make people feel a certain way. And so for me, that is the first thing that we think about. How does this make us feel? And so now once we establish the emotion that we're sure we want to feel, we now say what takes us there. I remember when we talked about Glory, Glory, Hallelujah in the Black Book, remember?
Yeah.
And for me, there's a thing. I grew up in what is called the Apostolic Church in Nigeria. And music is a very big part of that culture. All my siblings could play musical instruments. I could not. I usually tell people I'm the least talented person in my family. I was born without any natural talent. But people don't believe this. But growing up with my family, everyone played an instrument. I could not. But one thing I didn't know how to do, rhythm. And fundamentally, that beat it perverts Afro beats, it perverts Afro beats, it perverts like African. It's the one sound that manages to pass through everything. African rhythm. It's very common across West Africa, and it connects with people who came from the church culture. And this is something that we now obviously, I thought, needs to be in the picture to show that this guy is a church man. And this is the sound that ultimately, when we had to play like it played in the local churches. We know we're making a big modern film, but we have to go down to the roots. Let's go back to the local church. And we brought a church musician to come and play the guitar. I don't know what you call it, but they played the guitar live, and it worked really well. And this is the process for me across every scene, which is why the professionals hate me, because I'm very insistent on the very small things.
Yeah, it shows also success shows. Maybe a question to Christoph. Like Christoph is a representative also of Constantin Film, which is the biggest German cinema and also TV production company. He's head of music. What is your interest in scoring from Africa and your perspective on the African film market in general, with a special eye on music, which you have?
Well, I think that, first of all, I'm personally very interested in African music, going way back. I was pretty young when I was first time in Tanzania, and then, more on the East African side, and getting into this music tradition, then later on also the West African side, and trying to learn a little bit about it. So that's my personal interest in the music, and not just the traditional one, but also the up-to-date stuff. And regarding film music and African film music and the African film market in general, I think we should not focus too much on our Eurocentric perspective, and if you want to develop here and see what's coming next, and how we can develop a more global perspective on filmmaking, I think we have to look at what is going on in Africa and what is going on with African talent, and not just. We tend to look at Hollywood, look at the American composers, but I think it's at the moment, to my mind at least, even much more interesting to look at what's going on in Africa, and because that was why I was asking about how the pop phenomena are having an influence on film music as well, because I think that at the moment the most interesting musical developments are coming from Africa, and actually for a long time, but even now it's even more visible, and so that's my personal interest in it, and but I don't know much about it. That's why I'm here, and I just said before to Sydney and to Prudence that I'm here actually to listen and not to tell too much about what we are doing, because that's pretty boring. Everyone knows how it works, and it's a business, and it's an industry, and we are doing our stuff, and we try to do it well. But I think regarding influences and what we should look at, what's going on here is really interesting to me.
Maybe not only Constantin is a big company, but maybe question would be to Ray is really impressive score that you did for a Disney production, and maybe also pick up on Christoph is how did it come about? How did the cooperation with one of the biggest studios, animation studios, develop, and how did the job to score this film end up in your hands?
I think they made a mistake. I think somebody just dropped the ball and sent the wrong email to the wrong person. I think.
How was your reaction when it popped up in the email?
I think at the time I'd started to have a successful career in the UK a few years before the first Disney production. And that felt like the next stage. Hollywood felt like the next stage. And my agent and I, we were talking, he's also a very good friend of mine. We were just trying to figure out what that next project would be. And generally, my feeling through most of my career, and even listening to Editi speak earlier about what a director feels, the responsibility a director feels, it immediately activates something in me, because I'm always feeling like, there's some storytellers feel like they have to do everything, and that's what makes you a storyteller. You feel this compulsion that you have to make the best piece of art possible. And it's really, with most directors that I work with, I don't talk about music with them. I talk about what the feeling's like. No, music is my job. Let's talk about your childhood and what messed you up that made you think you have to make this type of film. And then we create the music after that. That has been my approach through my entire career, where I try to connect with storytellers. I try to connect with stories more than music. It's the story is what's universal. And thankfully I had enough of a reputation that when they were making a biopic of Yanis Adetokunbo's family, and we heard about it, it was this perfect synergy of, we had been looking for what project could be the next thing for me, and this was something that it felt at the time there was nobody else in the world that could do this. As somebody who's familiar with writing for big orchestras, somebody who has the experience, but also has the not hunger, because it's something far more desperate than hunger, like to participate, to add to the lexicon, to the vocabulary of what film scores have sounded like for 100 years. Like, okay, what does it sound like if I use my accent in it? And we pitched it to Disney, and they loved it, and that's what happened.
Maybe the question is, would you score, in a different way for an animation film or like for a feature film? Because when I saw like the Iweju soundtrack, when I heard it, it's so rich. So I thought myself, man, this is something you have to probably even close your eyes to really digest and really feel the whole music. And at the same time, you had the feeling, oh, the animation, it works great together. And I thought, okay, how do you approach that? Because I thought, okay, this is such a rich soup. How do you know that it works? And would you do the same approach with a feature film or a non-animated film?
Every film is a miracle, really. Every film that gets made, you're surprised at the end that, wow, we finished this, because it takes so many people coming together, so many people putting their hearts into it. Animation especially. Animation has so many people that, especially at Disney Animation, there are a lot of people who are working on the various scenes and sequences. Something very small, something a few seconds long is taking a person weeks to put together. So in approaching the music, I try to have that same respect for every moment, to punctuate every moment. Disney Animation already has a history of creating work of a certain quality, of a certain, and by quality I don't mean like value, I mean the texture of it. I mean there's a feeling of immersion that you get when you listen to a Disney score. And with Iwaju, it was similar to every film, from the smallest films to the largest films. I say, what can I add here? What can I bring from my experiences, from my curiosities? What can I do here that will be different? And I think I will continue to have that approach. I'll continue to have that approach. I could do another animation project. I'm probably doing another animation project soon, and I'm going to start afresh again. Like, okay, what can I do different here? How can I? That's the only way I found that I can get out of bed. It's so hard to do the same thing twice. It's really, really hard. I don't know what it's like for other people. I don't know what it's like for you, Kulanen, but when people come and say, oh, that score you did that time, we want exactly that again, it's the worst.
Maybe discussion also that we had earlier is like both of you also very in some phonic recording. Maybe to Kulanen, how do you handle the situation? Like you want string arranged, you want a big orchestra, you want a big sound. How do you operate? You sit on your keyboard, or how do you record the sound that you imagine? And where?
Okay, so it depends on the budget. We come to budget again. So I mean, every modern composer has come to a place where they can use samples, and how you make your samples to sound as real as possible, especially because of a budget. And working from here, we work on projects that have very limited budget. And this is what I always say to directors. I say the budget doesn't stop your creativity. Um, it's the execution of what you imagine that budget can limit. So you want to have a very big orchestra, and we can imagine it. But then when it comes to having to execute it, we need money to pay an orchestra, we need money to pay a studio, we need to pay for musicians. So my approach has always been, don't let the budget limit your creativity. And to be honest, in your limitation, you always find there's always this thing that comes up, and so that's how I've always approached every film. So if I'm with a director, okay, so what's it? What do we need to do? You know, if it's a big sound and there's budget, okay, then we record. Um, if there's no budget, we still create what we want to create. We still imagine what we want to imagine, but then we start to look for creative ways. Do we want to record a solo musician so many times and then put him in a hall and make him sound? You just start to think of ways. Do we want to layer it with samples? And you just start to think of creative ways to bring the vision out. But one of the things I always say to directors is it's the execution that the budget will limit us. But let's think of it in the best way possible. Let's create, let's be big, so that has always been my approach. That's always been my approach.
May I ask, because there's
Yeah.
rumor that the Black Book was done with a budget of 1 million, which is, to my mind, absolutely impossible. And congratulations if you actually did it. But I was wondering about the overall structure also. Is there, I mean, when you're talking with the Netflix guys, is there a Netflix office in Lagos? Or is it going through London? And how is this all stuff developing? Because if you have a success, and I know what I'm talking about, because we had, in the same year, we did the Dear Child. There was also there was a show, an international show with Netflix, and it went wild. It was really surprisingly successful. And then we're talking about the next project now with Netflix. And of course, it's a different situation. Also regarding budget, by the way. And I was wondering how this for you, because if you're creating something like the Black Book, which is going global, and being something like a global phenomenon, but doing it with a budget like that, also sure you're talking about not being stopped by creatively by a budget, but still, I mean, it's about upping the budget for the structure you're working in. And so I'm wondering, how is the situation you're in at the moment, also with the Netflix guys, and I mean, we all know these guys, so it's what's going on there? That's something I'm really interested, because I was amazed to see this production and read that it's I don't know if it's true, but that it's a 1 million budget. So it's something I was
Ray, Kulanen, do you want to tell him? So till tomorrow, right? $1 million is still a lot of money in Nigeria, right? If you're operating in that market, it's a lot of money. And I guess in our case, we were very, very dedicated to making the story that we wanted to make. I obsess over everything. And so if you ask why we were able to deliver production that immersive, that great, like on that budget, it's because like here I am. Every work that you do might be your last work. I really think that you remember by. And so I obsess over everything. I die on every hill. You know, there is no part of the process that I think, oh, I can get away with just glossing over this. Um, and Ray, we met on my first film up north, and I'd never made a film before. I was producing, I had no experience, but like I was so obsessed with tiny details. I remember coming to your studio, white with red lights in Lagos, and I was just like, you're playing me cues, and I'm like, I wanted to hear, like, I was very specific in the things that I wanted to hear. You have to die on every hill in order to do great work out of here. And you have to also understand that when I walked into the room to direct, it was my first feature directing, and all these guys with a lot of experience. Um, am I alone here?
No,
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 we
no,
see
no.
no, no. We're listening.
Oh, okay, okay.
We see you, we hear you.
So you have to have the consciousness that at this point, like people don't have experience working on big, expansive projects, and so you have to be prepared to not just be an artist but a leader, and be able to grab people and lead people. There were times on set where people were just tired because this thing took, what, 12 weeks to shoot. And how long do we shoot the average Nollywood film for? Right. 3 weeks, two
If
weeks?
it's days sometimes. Someone calls
Yeah.
their nephew to hold the
And so-
camera for a few days.
Yeah, and so you can imagine now being on set for like 12 weeks. And like so we had a month in Lagos, a month in Kaduna, another month in Lagos, and then pickups and stuff. So people were tired, and a third of my crew dropped out because they were
Yeah,
just
yeah, yeah. So my maybe question would be like 1 million, because we were discussing with very experienced producers sitting here around, also
Yeah.
Christoph, who has an eye on productions in Europe, on their budgets. What is your next project, and would you go on such a mission again? Because me as a producer myself, if I hear you talk, I can really feel the passion you have, but also I feel the pain at the same time. So my question would be like what is your next project, and how is the budgeting of the next project, and would you do go the same road again?
I think like my long-winded self should get to the point of the fact that like we were blessed by the fact that the project got very successful. But now, fun thing is that when I went to Netflix, I said this will be your most successful project out of the continent. I said it from and and everyone looked at me like,
Yeah, yeah.
and I'm like, but I know this for a fact. And so with the guys I was working with, Kulanen, I was like, this has to be the best, absolute best project coming out of the continent. So no one is sleeping. Oh, like we're delivering the absolute best possible. But and so I'm really glad that I chose Netflix as a platform because I knew that what we wanted to do, wanted to tell African stories, the new next generation of African stories, the global scale. We wanted access to that market, that the audience that Netflix provides. If you go ahead and do this hard work of making a great picture, might as well put it on the biggest possible platform. Of course, policy-wise, we know Netflix has pulled back a little bit from original content out of Nigeria, but it's not the first time this has happened. It's an economic thing. The Nigerian economy needs to pick itself back up, and I'm sure streamers will be back on the table. But we were making films before the streamers, and so it's very important to note that whether Netflix is commissioning content or not. I raised money and made my film without Netflix. Netflix didn't commission my film. All right. And so we can be deterred by the changes in the economic landscape. But thankfully, they gave us that one platform. And we've now established what is now a global practice. I'm working on projects in LA at the moment. developing stuff with some really incredible people.
Yes.
I actually I guess on this journey you realize that you actually your place in the world, like you become more certain of your place in the world. And I'm really excited to see how far that journey has gone. We're developing currently a TV show. Yeah, my partners haven't made an announcement yet, so I can't jump the gun. But it's a really global project, and we're really, really excited. I'm working with an A-list showrunner who we sat down in London having coffee, and I walked him. I only God knows I only wanted to hear his thoughts about my show because he had made something really amazing, and he asked me a question. Editi, what do you want me to do? I said, I'm looking for a showrunner. I don't know why I said that. And he's like, I'm in. I want to do this. And I sat there for a minute, jaw dropped. My co-founder, Mimi Bertels, turns out, Editi, he said he's going to do it. And so I'm really excited to be in this place where we're doing like those things that we always dreamed African storytelling could be. You know, we're doing those, and with my partners are happy to announce I'm sure. But we're making a film this year. We're making a film this year. We already announced the other film we're making. So we're making two films this year.
Who are the
One
musicians scoring these films?
Who's asking this question?
Me, because it's the title of the panel. We have to stick to the topic.
The moderator.
Okay, so
Sacha.
Kulanen is already set to produce the music sound for the film I'm working on at the moment. But there's a lot of projects we're working on, and we're always happy to work with like the best souls that connect the most with the project. So I'm more if a person, the person's language, musical language connects with the project that we are doing. So I love working with my people. I love dancing with the guys who brought me to a table. But if, for example, I'm working with say a production designer on a high pop show, I would go with someone who has more experience in that. And so I'm going with people who connect more with certain projects. But yeah, I'm working with Kulanen at the moment.
Okay. All right. So, I
Ray,
don't
don't
know.
give me side eye. I'm going to work with you.
No, how can
I saw
how
it.
Can? How can? No, I was hiding something over here.
Okay.
But congratulations. I haven't seen you in a long time. It's good to see you now. and-
Nobody sees me except on panels.
But I'm so happy for you, man. I'm so happy for you. I'm so happy to hear that it's opening up doors and that you continued, for all of us. I can actually add a little bit to what you were saying. I was saying earlier in a pre-conversation about the age of Nigeria. It was a very young country, and the film industry there is also very young. But Nigerians are, I'm biased, but Nigerians are pretty extraordinarily talented people. And even with so little money, most of the industry for a long time, for decades, was home videos made with camcorders. But people's artistic desires and compulsions push them into making these stories that the world loves. Like Nollywood movies, the types of films and shows that don't make it to theaters are still watched all over the world and loved in hair salons and barbershops. And so budgets go a really, really long way in that part of the world, not just because of the economy, but because there is a culture of making the best meal with whatever you have. Whatever it is you can have around you, you make the best meal. And that means that when you do get $1 million or $10 million or, what comes out is something extraordinary.
Maybe question would be, like, why Nigeria? It's a young country, but in many parts. Why do 200 million people live in Nigeria? Why is Nigeria in film so forwarding? Why is Nigeria the cultural force in Africa, maybe even a couple of years on a global scale? Why is Nigeria? You have any idea, you three Nigerians? Why is that so?
Kulanen, what do you think?
I think Nigerians are daring. We are very forthright. We want to do the best. We want to someone was giving an example, there were no landlines, but Nigeria went straight to cell phones. We just want to go to the top, and there's that desire to do it. You don't hold a Nigerian down, He's always looking for it. When you tell him this is the way to do it, he'll look for the best possible way to do it. And so everywhere we find ourselves, wherever you find, and I bet you wherever you go in the world, you're going to find a Nigerian. So if it's in Korea, if it's in America, if it's in Europe, we just want to express ourselves, and whatever it is we find ourselves, we want to do it really well, So that's why you see Nigerians everywhere. We're not shy to speak our voices. We're not shy to say what we have to say. And so that's why the culture has just spread everywhere. Editing.
I think being Nigerian is such a fantastic thing. We're loved greatly, we're hated immensely, but we can never be. You can never be ignored. You can never ignore a Nigerian. You can never think that we are blind, we're flat. We'll never be that thing. You love us, you hate us, but you would never ignore us. I think that the motivations that drive a person being Nigerian we're very immensely driven because the alternative is dying. If you don't succeed, you die. It's when you have those choices and they're staring right in front of you, and dying is an exaggeration of the fact that we fear failure. In Nigeria, for example, you grew up knowing that your parents look at you, my son. There's three options in front of you. You're a doctor, you're a lawyer, you're an engineer, or you're a failure. See, so you have three great options and one not great option. And
then you decide to be a musician.
But how are musicians seen?
It's madness. It's madness.
You're really succeed at that, because if you do not become a success out of being a musician, sorry, you can't even go home. Everybody wants to go home. And to go home, well, you have to be successful.
You have to be successful.
Pray, ally.
It's the truth. It's madness, really. I think there was a little bit of insanity in me making the choice to be a musician, and it's great having conversations with you guys. It's always great having conversations with Nigerians because there is this thing where it's like a self-fulfilling prophecy, but it's panned out. Like Nigerians really are. I don't want to make this panel about Nigerians. It's about music and film music from the region, but Nigerians really are extraordinary go-getters in the world for various reasons. But we tell ourselves these stories, we see ourselves like this, and then we're like, okay, then I have to make sure I don't disappoint at the very minimum. I have to exceed. And this is one of our cultural myths, I think, that we have that keeps us going. And I'm inspired by Editi and Kulanen. I'm inspired by other Nigerians that I meet. I can't, there's a phrase, like, Najano de carry last. It's something that we say to ourselves. Does someone want to translate it? Say again?
Najano de carry last.
Najano de carry last. It means we never lose.
Last draw.
We never lose. Betting against a Nigerian, that's just an unfortunate choice, to make. I think there's more to come. I think all these successes that are happening are just arbiters of more to come. Things that will still show up.
Do we still have some time left? Yeah. Okay. I would like to know how you or like your peer group and the guys you're working with, how do you kind of reinvest in Nigeria? Because I mean, what you're talking about now is you're branching out. You're in London, you're in LA, you're wherever. You're connecting with these guys everywhere, and that's the right way to do. Because of course you're telling your stories to the world, but what's going on back? It's always about structure, about have like we were talking about it, like have rights organizations, have structure to well support the community in a way and build whatever, like what you were talking about, like the Philharmonic activity you're doing and all this kind of stuff. So that's something I would like to know what's going on there.
Well, there are various things. I can speak to what I'm doing, what I've tried to do, and I can speak to what others are trying to do as well. In terms of rights management, performance rights, there's a lot of room to grow. I started the Lagos Philharmonic many years ago, specifically to connect the work that I'm doing in London and Los Angeles to Lagos, to make sure that as I built and continue to build my reputation and access and resources, that there is this connection back home. But I still try to make sure that when I can, work on a few projects back home as well. Last year I worked on a film called The Odds that's going to come out this year. And it's often the same thing as I said earlier. It's often an approach that means I'm being novel about it. The Odds is fully a retro synthesizer score. We use like 80s Korg, Moog machines, and it's fully. And the thing there for me was, what is my perspective using these modular synths? What is my perspective using these instruments that the world is familiar with in a different context? So I'm very much still invested in the Nigerian film industry to the extent that I can in my schedule. But there are also people besides me who are building art spaces. There are people who have started residencies, world-renowned artists. We are very much connected to home, and we want to produce with the intention that it's an invitation. In me working on a film for BBC Films, or Disney, or Apple, or Sony, it's in my conversations. I try to make sure I'm positioning it as an invitation, because I'm just one of many. I happen to be the person that made it into that particular room and meeting. But I'm one of many. I have all the influences, all the people that I've worked with, all the people that are beside me, like Kulanen, who I'm inspired by. We're all part of this collective of possibility in the city, and I think people are understanding that. It's why we're having this conversation right now. It's why, Editi and Kulanen are here.
Okay. Personally, we have a group back home, and Ray just joined the group recently too. One of the things I did when we started that group was, first of all, I wanted the guys to be able to survive first. So how do we make money from your art? So it was the first thing that I began to speak to them about, and how to speak with directors and producers and let them know that music is a big part of film, and it requires some form of budget, and you should put some consideration into it. It was the first thing that brought us together. I really wanted them to understand how to make money. But then we branched into all sorts. We talk about all sorts. We talk about gear. We talk about, technique. And we really talk about things that consensus in the country and how to survive. And but also we've been you spoke about guilds and all that. We've been working on a guild, you know, so that we can standardize a lot of things, and then also um, be able to approach things as a group, you know. But we have that group which we started a few years back, and we communicate. That's one of the ways that we are trying to help the organization and the structure back home.
Nice. And the
Okay.
guild is historically a very Nigerian thing. I think if you look, I don't know, course of Benin or whatever. So it's very well organized. I would even say maybe one suggestion from my side. I think the fact that so many talent is in Nigeria has also to do with Nigerian history, because I think Nigerian history goes way back, is very deep, and I think somehow it's in the minds and in the genes of the people. I think this is why Nigeria is probably one of a very special place. Not maybe the state of Nigeria, but the region is it's a place where very influential for the whole rest of Africa. What happened there, and I think this really shows in the artistry today, in music, in film music. So really pleasure talking to you people, and I'm sure Nigeria will bring a lot to the table, obviously in the next couple of years. Christoph?
Thank you.
Absolutely.
I guess last word, I think, on this question would be that the best way to put back into the industry at home is to bring projects back home. You know, bring opportunities to filmmakers at home, even while we're making our film. You know, I took the streamer pay structure and ensured that we were the best paying local production in the market. And for me, does it cost you a little bit extra, you know, relative to what the market pays? Yes. But I know that I'm going to always ask the people who work with me to give me the absolute possible best that they can give. And so you have to ensure that they are paid and well, decently compensated for the work that they do. I employ my producers long term, right from pre-production. I do long pre-productions, and so if you're employed, like hired as a producer, for example, or anyone in the production cycle, you're going to be earning a salary until production, because it's only fair to do that. But more important than that, I think it's telling stories which center the continent, ensures our people are engaged in the process of telling those stories. You know, you want to infuse the continent in whatever you do. It doesn't matter anywhere in the world that you're going to tell stories. You have to ensure that you bring your people along. But ultimately, obviously, before we have to build power, you know, in order to exercise power, and it requires influence and power to make these kinds of decisions. And we're in the process of, I believe, building that power, the power to say, I want this African filmmaker on projects. You know, I insist on working on this guy, because you're always going to be showing a guy who's great. He worked on this amazing big thing. But if we don't bring our people along, they don't get the required credential. They don't build those credentials. All right. You have not worked on a successful film until you worked on a successful film. And so if you do not bring people along to do these things, you know, and so our people would not be able to get in the room until we get in the room. So when you do get in the room, put your foot through the door. Just put your foot, let the door crack. Just a tiny bit more open than it was before, and sneak your guys in. Make sure your guys walk in. And when the guys walk in, back them up. You know, they make a mistake, help them, walk them through, hold their hands, ensure that the work that they do meets the standard that's required. So once they get in the room and have done work and they become successful, they never leave the room. Nigerians succeed. You know, we enter the room and never leave. All right. And that is the job that it's true now.
That's great. Great. It's great.
Great
That's-
last word, Editi. I love that. Thank you.
It's kind of scary.
No, I like it. I like it.
No.
No, and actually for me, it's really it's amazing to be part of this, because for me it's just, I mean, to learn and to see who's there. what's going on, and to get an idea of what is going on and who might be interesting to work with also, and to see to open up an entire huge scene to be seen, and get an idea, because I mean we have tons of projects, and not every project is maybe the right one, but maybe there are some. And I mean, for example, we have a show at the moment, and if I would have known you earlier, it would have been really interesting, because we have a British director with Nigerian roots there, and she would have been really interested in discussing this, for example. But I didn't know that, or didn't know what you're doing. So this was my idea of this panel, to learn and to get a certain idea of what's going on. I mean, this is only a little part, of course, but it's a start, and to see what's going on, man.
Well, now you know us.
For sure.
Now we never forget you again. Yeah, let's open up the discussion. Exactly. Yeah, Sydney.
Thank you so very much for coming here. One of the reasons I went to Black Book, not just because it was a hit, was because I was told by Godwin Tom that you created this movie, $1 million, like it was a business. You had investors. You weren't just going and asking money and keeping your budget really low, so the investors weren't afraid to put in their 10,000, but that you had it like they were stakeholders, shareholders in a business. And that's what contributed to being able to make $1 million film. Can you talk a little bit about how you shaped this Nigerian film in a different way from the $40,000 Nigerian films that go on home video and that they make a lot of money?
I think it's an understanding the fundamentals of products. I come from tech. I worked in advertising for 12 years, tech for 20 years. And I built my first company when I was 17. So I've been in business for a really long time. Oh, I have a feeling I'm not okay, yeah. So I've been in business for a really long time. I see things through a business lens, a lot of things through a business lens. And so first thing to understand is that if you do not make a successful film, you can't make the next film. If you also make a film that is successful, it needs to be sustainable. And so sustainability means that if I raise money today, I have to be able to raise money tomorrow. And so you have to do the work that allows your investors to return. It allowed my investor who put in $50,000 in my first picture to come back and write a $500,000 check, because they saw how the care that was given to their money, right? It didn't matter how bad it got on set. Every Tuesday and Friday, I would take an hour, sit down and write an investor update, and my investors understood the filmmaking process from the beginning, from pre-production to the end, to sell, and that is, for me, it's important. When I say, when you walk through the door, you keep the door open. I don't just need to raise money. I need to ensure that other people can raise money. I need to be a good example and ambassador for the industry, for what is possible. And so it is important for me to do the required work. And so that was why, that was the thinking behind how I operate from a business point of view. But I have to always remind everyone that the biggest competition for our pictures getting seen is Hollywood. When you open your Netflix page, you see pictures. And people don't sit down and think, I want to watch an African film to support the African industry, when they're clicking to watch a show or a film. They want to be entertained. They're in a mood and they want to get out of that mood, or they want to feel something. And so the picture that the person sees, if it doesn't compete, they would just watch what they want to watch. Now, it is okay to make a picture and Nigerians watch it and see and say, oh, we love it, it's fantastic, it tells a story. but our market is really small. Ray, the most money you've made has been on projects outside Nigeria. You made more money outside than in Nigeria. You've built your muscle in Nigeria, but you made more money. And to build an industry that is sustainable, we have to make projects that are successful, that are profitable, and that can walk themselves into a new market. That way we can expand our portfolio. And so to do that, we have to create pictures that are similar, if not better. Try to be better than Hollywood, right? We don't have the budget. So if you cannot do post-production in LA, okay, can we find a place in Scotland where you can do it on a budget? If you can't do music, in London, can we find a guy in Budapest who can do the orchestral delivery for you? This is how we approach this thing. We will never have the money to compete against Hollywood, but we can out-innovate them. That is my approach to things.
That was amazing. Yeah, more directors should have a background in advertising and marketing. It's an important in this age that we're in where content is a glut. There's such a glut of content. It's more and more important. What you just said is the absolute truth. Understanding how to position your film, understanding how to make it sustainable and know that you're competing with the rest of the world is, that's awesome. You should do a masterclass. I'll come for it. Oh, you do?
No, I do not. I'm still laughing. The idea of a masterclass, gee.
Go ahead.
I have a lot of questions. That's why I'm doing this, so I can learn something. You keep asking about orchestral, or you call it philharmonic. Do you have orchestral philharmonic? Because you said you go to Hungary if you need that. Oh, I'm sorry. Do I have to repeat all that? Yes. Ooh. Okay. I have a question I'm very curious about. You keep talking orchestral. Do you have philharmonic? I don't know what it means, but then I hear you say when we need orchestral, we don't go to Hollywood, we go to Scotland or Hungary. What's orchestral in Africa or in Nigeria? Is there this orchestral ability, or do you have to outsource it, go to Hungary or something? I don't know what it is.
Kulanen, do you want to speak to?
Oh, go ahead, Ray.
I can. Well, there are with everything. There are very many talented musicians in Nigeria. I think that's a question that I've been asked, even just as composers. I'm sure we get asked that question, like, what are you? Why are you composers? Why are you writing symphonic music? But the truth is, there's such a huge pool of raw talent in the country. We don't have a resident symphony orchestra yet, but we're launching this year. But I founded the Lagos Philharmonic a few years ago with the goal being that we establish a resident orchestra for Lagos. But in terms of the pool of musicians, just like the way that Nigerians are dominating the Billboard charts and all of that, like it's in the classical world, it's the same level of talent. We're just early in the organizational journey, but we're getting there. We're getting there.
I think, Ray, that
Okay.
sometimes why do we need to step out? It's to your point is there are some structural issues that we haven't quite addressed yet. And of course, infrastructure. There's an infrastructure thing. I mean, the music here is great, and musicians are great, composers are great. Like, Kulanen did all the composition for the Black Book, but he had a team outside of the country do like the sound.
A lot of them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So like the Foley sounds were done because we don't have a Foley studio in Lagos, you know. And so if you want to make a world-class global product, sometimes you have to ensure that like our people won't build the skill until they're part of a project. What we are responsible for is ensuring that as you're going to Scotland to do your post-production or in Brazil or whatever, you ensure that local talent is attached so they can learn. All right. And say in 3 projects' time, you don't need to go to those places, but they have to build the experience ultimately to be able to do that.
Okay, let me just talk quickly about, because she specifically spoke about symphonic. Not every score is symphonic, but a lot of scores are symphonic because that's how film started, with a lot of classical music. And so there's research to this. People love to hear what they love to hear. And that is why I actually use the approach I use, when scoring. You will not just completely, especially if you want to appeal to a wider audience, you will not just completely remove what they don't know and put in something that what they know, sorry, you wouldn't completely remove what they know and then put in something that they completely do not know or haven't heard. It will distract them. And so the approach is always to still use symphonic elements and then start to add our taste, and that's what the Afrobeat is doing, to the international audience. And so we don't have that symphonic, we don't have a hall, we don't have, and Ray has spoken to this, we don't have that yet. And so to be able to record and add some of these symphonic elements, yes, we'd have to record in somewhere in Czech, in Budapest, in Bulgaria, somewhere, which has competitive prices, that can fit with our budget, So that's just kind of that kind of just answers what she was asking about symphonic, having symphonic elements.
It's make Hollywood not gonna say the price on less. They can't go the floor. We're not gonna fly. I like.
No,
Last
you don't
word
lie.
to Ray. I think because we have to come to an end.
Oh no. I was just saying we're building. We're all building. That's what we're doing.
Yeah.
We're just.
And maybe
we're in
one
the process.
last word that I would say is that, also hearing that you're building up like Lagos symphonic orchestra. I think this is a great idea. This is an evolution, and like you say, we're just building, and we're just sitting among the builders. And this is I would end the discussion of the panel. One more question, okay?
We actually here have a student from this Lord Academy, one of the presenters from yesterday. Her name is Florence Gavila, all right, and she's actually just finished her training, and she wanted to know, because she's very impressed by the panel, and she wanted to know how to go from, graduating to becoming like you and being in the business. Hello.
Wow. You want to become a Nigerian composer?
No, just composer.
I'm joking. I don't know that my path will be the path for everybody else. And you probably should get answers from each of us and see what you can pull from each. For me, my process is I already had the compulsion. Maybe you already have that, but I already had the compulsion to want to tell stories, to want to help others tell stories as well. If you can access the things that motivate you, if you understand it, if you understand what motivates you and what doesn't, and you can access it, it will help you, because the journey isn't easy. It's you're relying on other people, you're relying on miracles sometimes. But the work that you do to make sure that your output is consistently good will be so much easier if you're making work that you love. So find what motivates you, is what I'll say. Find the things that motivate you and hold on to it. Access it with every single project, if possible.
Thank you.
Okay, if you're just finishing school, I would say to you, because this is how I started. I had friends from film school who wanted music. They were students, and they were my friends. Yink what we've known for over 20 years, Kenneth Gang, and all of these guys. I started making small music for them, in their short films, in their student projects, and it's taken many years. Today they are making film with Editi. Yinka is making film with Editi, and he says the right person for this job is Kulanen. That's how I get on Black Book. So you have to. Who are the people around you now? Who are those people who have potential? Those directors that are just trying to make their short film. They're just trying to do something small. Start working on those projects. It's going to be very small budget. It's going to be very messy. But just try and deliver on those projects. As those people grow, because the thing about filmmaking is it has to do a lot with trust. It has to do a lot with communication. So if you start communicating with those guys from when they're just starting, you're going to form a bond. And so every time they want to do a film, they'll know that this is the composer that I can communicate best with, and so they will always come back to you. So find those people around you who are just graduating too and start to work with them, and put in your best. And like Ray said, sometimes it's a miracle, you just wait and see and grow, and enjoy it.
Okay.
Okay, last comment from Editi and then we're done. Okay.
Yeah. So what Ray said and what Kulanen said, actually absolutely great. I would sort of synthesize it by saying that you would find more success networking horizontally than vertically. You might not have access to the big director or big producer, but you have access to people at your level, have access to people who went to film school with you. So obviously, working and building things with your guys whom you don't have to impress means that you have the freedom, the lack of pressure to actually do the absolute best work that you can do. So of course, network horizontally among your peers, come together, form a cooperative and do a project, But how do you improve? I think that you probably would never be taken seriously until you take yourself seriously. Start doing something. And you live in a world that is so accessible and people can create content. You can create content for yourself. Take some of your favorite film scores. Take Dune, for example. How could you make it better? How could you add your own twists and layers to such a big project? So take that soundtrack, take that score and add your twist to it and put it online. And when people start recognizing you as this person that, does amazing things with film score. Eventually someone says, hey, I know this girl, come listen to what she does, and who knows where it goes. So yes, 3 things: network with your people and start actually working with them. And then of course, create content around the thing that you want to work on. Peace.
And you're right in the best room also, I would say. Yeah, knowing people like Prudence, you're on a good track already, so you just have to start connecting right here into this room. Thank you very much, gentlemen. Kulanen, Editi, and Ray, thank you very much to give us this insight in your work.
Ray, we should catch up.
We really should.
Yeah.
Thank you very much, gentlemen. It was really enlightening. Thanks.